What if the most powerful revenge isn't fire, fury, or loud words, but silence? Think about that for a moment. In a world that teaches us to strike back, shout louder, and never back down, could it be that the strongest move is not to move at all? That silence, disciplined and intentional, is the sharpest sword. Before we dive in, I want to know, comment below where in the world you're watching this from. Let's create a global moment together. We're building a space for emotional strength, stoic wisdom, and unshakable self-mastery. And we want you to be part of it. We have a collective mission with this video. Help us reach 500 new subscribers this week. Get this message in front of as many people as possible and make this video echo where it's most needed, inside those who are still trapped in toxic cycles. So if you're watching now, hit that subscribe button. Why? Because YouTube shows content first to those who subscribe and watch till the end, before anyone else even sees it. And trust me, this video has something you won't want to miss at the end. So even if you're multitasking or just listening in the background, let this play. Your presence here matters more than you think. And who knows, by the end of this video, silence may just become your greatest weapon. Let's begin. Toxic people don't need to win arguments. They just need to keep you reacting. They feed on your anger. They grow stronger every time you explain yourself. And even your silence, if it's filled with inner rage, can still feed their illusion of control. This is why the Stoic philosopher Epictetus warned, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. Let that sink in. If they can provoke you, they own you. They pull the strings and you dance. And that's exactly the game they want you to play. But here's where Stoic silence changes everything. The moment you choose not to react, not because you're suppressing your feelings, but because you're mastering them, the game ends. You interrupt the supply chain. You starve them of what they need most, your energy. Psychologists call this extinction. In behavioral science, it means a learned behavior dies out when it's no longer rewarded. When you stop responding, when you stop feeding the cycle, the pattern begins to break. Toxic people are wired to provoke because, in the past, it worked. But your silence rewrites the script. It introduces a new variable they cannot control, indifference rooted in discipline. According to the Stoicism article, Dealing with Toxic People Using Stoicism, silence doesn't just de-escalate, it disarms. It removes the only leverage they ever had, your reaction. So remember, they don't thrive on truth. They thrive on chaos. And your silence, that's not avoidance. It's strategic resistance. It's the refusal to hand over your peace in exchange for their noise. Manipulators don't fear confrontation. They expect it. They prepare for it. They thrive on it. But silence? Silence is a different kind of storm. When you stop responding, you don't just remove your voice, you remove their power. Suddenly, they're no longer in control of the narrative. They can't twist your words. They can't trigger your guilt. They can't play victim to your reaction. They're left with nothing. And nothing is terrifying because it forces them to confront themselves. Your silence becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, they no longer see control. They see confusion, insecurity, and desperation. They begin to ask, why aren't they answering? Did I lose them? Did I go too far? The questions echo unanswered, and the silence grows louder with every passing hour. They feared your anger, but they dread your absence. Because silence removes the one thing they really wanted all along, control. Without your voice to manipulate, without your emotion to weaponize, they're left trapped in their own mental noise, spinning stories to fill the void. What they don't realize is this: your silence was never about revenge. It was a declaration. It told them, you no longer get to write this story. And that's the one punishment they never saw coming. The greatest lie manipulators ever believed was that they were in control, but their power was never real. It was borrowed, sustained only by your reaction, your energy, your willingness to stay in the game. And the moment you stopped playing, the illusion began to crack. Like a house of cards built on guilt, drama, and emotional manipulation, everything they built collapses when the foundation, your attention, is removed. They shouted to feel important. They accused to stay in control. They twisted your words to feel powerful. But it was you who made that power possible. And when you went silent, when you stepped away without explanation, the entire structure came crashing down. In psychology, this collapse has a name: narcissistic collapse. It happens when someone deeply dependent on validation and control loses access to their emotional supply. The mask slips, the rage surfaces, the confusion erupts. They may lash out, beg, guilt trip, anything to pull you back. Not because they love you, but because without your reaction they don't know who they are. You were the mirror they used to admire their false strength. Now they're forced to see their reflection in your absence, and what's left is emptiness. So when you walk away in silence, you're not destroying them, you're revealing them. They never had power, they only had the illusion. And your silence was the truth that shattered it. Closure. We crave it. A final conversation, a last explanation, one more moment to understand or to be understood. But what if that craving is a trap? Toxic people know your need for closure, and they use it as bait. They don't want resolution, they want re-entry. One more chance to pull you back into the story, to twist the ending, reopen old wounds, and reclaim control. The desire for closure keeps you tethered to a false hope that maybe this time they'll admit the truth. Maybe this time they'll see your pain. But as long as you chase closure, you're still playing their game. When you walk away in silence, you do something far more powerful. You take away the script. You deny them the final word. You become the ending they never got to write. Silence becomes the only real closure because it cannot be argued, revised, or undone. As the Stoics would say through the words of Epictetus, when someone shows you who they are, why must you still demand more proof? If they've already revealed their nature, why keep demanding a better ending? The truth is, they've given you all the answers you need in their patterns, their manipulation, their betrayal. Your silence is the moment you stop asking questions. You stop waiting for justice. You stop giving them another chance to rewrite history. And in that silence, you finally close the chapter, not with their permission, but with your power. Silence is not weakness, it's not avoidance, and it's definitely not surrender. True Stoic silence is discipline in motion, the invisible armor of someone who refuses to be shaken, to remain calm when chaos surrounds you, to speak nothing when every emotion demands a scream. That's not passivity. That's control. Marcus Aurelius captured it perfectly. You always own the option of having no opinion. That doesn't mean you're indifferent. It means you choose not to be ruled by the noise around you. This is the Stoic path. To react only with intention. To never let others hijack your emotional state. To master your impulses before your impulses master you. Imagine this. Someone accuses you unfairly, hoping to trigger your rage. But instead of explaining, defending, or shouting, you remain silent. Not because you don't know what to say, but because you've already decided they don't deserve your words. That silence, that is power. It's the kind of strength that doesn't need to prove itself, because it's already proven. Silence is not the absence of response. It is the presence of restraint. It is the moment when you decide that your peace is worth more than their chaos. And that choice, made over and over again, is what transforms Stoic philosophy into real-world freedom. Imagine a master in jiu-jitsu. They don't resist force with force. They wait, they observe, and then they use the opponent's momentum against them. That's exactly what your silence does. It's not weakness. It's psychological warfare. When someone toxic lashes out, they expect your rage. They expect the argument, the tears, the desperate response. But when none comes, their rhythm breaks, their script collapses, and what they're left with is themselves. Your silence turns their energy inward. Every manipulative word they throw hits the wall of your stillness and bounces back at full force. They stumble, not because you fought harder, but because you didn't fight at all. Seneca said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And that's exactly what silence allows. You don't match their chaos. You reflect it back at them, untouched. Silence is your shield. It blocks their attacks, keeps your dignity intact. Silence is your sword. It pierces through the illusion of their control, quietly, deeply, and without warning. They wanted to see you unravel. Instead, they see you unshaken. That's when they realize the battle was over before it began. Most people think silence is something you give them, a punishment, a statement, a weapon. But what they don't realize is this: your silence isn't just for them, it's for you. Because in the quiet that follows manipulation, something incredible begins to happen. You start to hear your own voice again, without their noise, without their drama, without the constant emotional negotiation. You begin to remember who you are, your values, your worth, your peace. Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth, not just healing after pain, but becoming stronger because of it. The silence you once feared becomes a sanctuary, a sacred space where you stop surviving and start rebuilding. Every day you remain silent, you reclaim pieces of yourself that were buried under guilt, fear, and confusion. You don't need their validation anymore. You don't need their closure. You don't even need their apology. What you need and what you now have is clarity. In silence, the fog lifts, and you realize you were never the problem. You were just trapped in someone else's chaos. Now you walk freely, not with noise, not with vengeance, but with calm. And in that calm, your real healing begins. You used to think not reacting meant weakness, that if you stayed silent, they'd win, that if you didn't explain yourself, they'd write the story for you. But now, you know better. Silence isn't the absence of power. It's what real power sounds like. Because when you don't react, not out of fear, but out of mastery, you reveal what they could never break, your inner structure. What rises in the aftermath isn't just recovery, it's clarity. You now see through the lies, its boundaries. Not everyone deserves access to your emotions. It's peace, not a moment of calm, but a permanent way of living. And it's resilience, the kind that grows stronger in silence. They expect rage. You gave them distance. They expect closure. You gave them stillness. They expect proof of pain. You gave them nothing, and that nothing was everything. Because now, you no longer react just to prove a point. You remain calm because you are the point. Your life speaks louder than any argument. Your peace shouts over any insult, and your silence silences them. As one line captures it perfectly, your silence is your crown, your restraint is your throne. That's not philosophy. That's who you've become. They thought silence was weakness, that if you didn't fight back, you were defeated, that if you didn't scream, beg, or explain, you had lost. But now they know, and maybe now you finally see it too. What they never expected, what they never saw coming, was that silence would be your greatest revenge. Not because it hurt them, although it did, but because it healed you. That small, quiet moment where you chose not to reply, not to react, not to stoop to their level, that was the moment the entire dynamic shifted. It wasn't fire that burned their illusions. It was your calm. It wasn't a scream that exposed their lies. It was your stillness. And it wasn't the final word that ended the game. It was your choice to say nothing. What this journey reveals, and what Stoicism has always taught, is simple but life-changing. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. The world may tell you otherwise, but inner strength doesn't shout as it stands tall in silence. Reactions are not proof of power. Self-mastery is. Anyone can lash out. Very few can remain composed. The strongest person in the room is the one who controls themselves, not others. Sometimes the greatest victory is not fighting at all. Walking away is not defeat. It's the declaration that you value your peace more than their chaos. That's why Stoicism matters, not as a theory, not as ancient wisdom in dusty books, but as a lived philosophy, a way to walk through a loud world, in quiet command of your soul. If you've made it this far, you're no longer just a viewer. You've become part of a rare group of people who don't live by impulse, but by intention. You're one of the few who understands you don't always need to respond. You don't always need closure. You don't need to win the argument to win your life back. And for that, thank you. Thank you for staying until the end. That already sets you apart. It means you're not here just for information. You're here for transformation. Let's grow this together. If this video spoke to something deep inside you, if it helped you see silence not as surrender, but as strength, then help us spread this message. Subscribe now to Stoicism and Love, because our next video might be the one that changes everything for you. Leave a comment below saying where in the world you're watching from. We want to know who's walking this path with us. And if you want to go deeper into this philosophy and apply it daily, check the pinned comment. There's a special link there to our exclusive ebook on Stoicism and emotional mastery. If it makes sense for you, it will support your growth and help our channel grow too. Let this be your new beginning. Let silence be your strength. Let self-mastery be your rebellion, because they never saw it coming. But you did. And now, you'll never forget it.